Why are you crying? Maxwell's voice was soft, barely cutting through the hum of the break room's flickering light. Rachel, eyes red, sat hunched over a crumpled tissue at Reed Mart's store 48. She'd just been unfairly sacked, judged for being a single mom, her heart heavy with her mother's recent death and the weight of raising little Zara alone. Despite the cruel bias, Rachel worked tirelessly, her kindness unwavering, covering customers' short change, cleaning up spills, enduring rude remarks about her untrustworthy life. She reminded Maxwell of his mother, stoic yet broken. Why did she stay? A deeper bond stirred in him. What's your guess for their story? Share where you're watching from, what time it is, and subscribe to uncover the secrets ahead. The air in Reed Mart's store, 48 break room, clung heavy with the scent of stale coffee and microwave popcorn, a fluorescent bulb buzzing overhead like a trapped insect. Maxwell J., new to the warehouse crew, stood frozen at the threshold, his hand still on the door. Rachel's muffled sobs, raw and jagged, had stopped him mid-step. She sat at the chipped formica table, her cashier's apron crumpled beside a half-empty water bottle, her face buried in her hands. Her chestnut hair, usually tied back with precision, spilled loose, catching the dim light. Maxwell, in his faded work shirt and borrowed name tag, felt a pang he couldn't place, a memory of his mother's weary eyes after long shifts. He cleared his throat, voice low. "Why are you crying?" he asked again, softer this time. Rachel's head snapped up, her hazel eyes glistening with surprise and shame. She swiped at her cheeks, forcing a shaky laugh. "Oh God, I didn't hear you come in. It's nothing, just a bad day." Her voice cracked, betraying the lie. Maxwell didn't move, his broad frame filling the doorway, his gaze steady but gentle. He wasn't just a stockroom grunt, not really. As CEO of Reed Mart, Maxwell had built this empire to honor his mother, Elaine Reed, a cashier who'd faced the world's cruelty with quiet grit. Now disguised as Maxwell J., he was here to unearth the rot in his company, spurred by an anonymous letter about unfair dismissals. Rachel, he sensed, was the key to it all. She stood, smoothing her jeans, trying to reclaim composure. "I'm fine, just got some news." Her fingers trembled as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Maxwell stepped closer, his work boots scuffing the linoleum. "Doesn't sound like nothing," he said, voice warm but probing. Rachel hesitated, then sank back into the chair, her shoulders slumping. "They fired me," she whispered, the words spilling like a dam breaking. "Today, after 3 years, said I wasn't reliable because I'm a single mom, as if Zara's a liability." Her voice hardened, then softened. "I can't even tell her. She's 6, you know? She thinks mom, our mom, is still coming back." Maxwell's chest tightened. Zara. The name hit like a stone, stirring memories of his loss. Elaine Reed had died when he was barely 20, worn down by poverty and a world that judged her for it. He saw that same weight in Rachel's eyes, the grief of losing a mother, the burden of carrying on. "That's not right," he said, his jaw tight. "They can't just fire you for that." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "They can when the manager thinks single moms are too distracted. Never mind that I've covered shifts, stayed late, and paid out of pocket when customers came up short. I thought I was enough." Her voice broke, and she pressed her knuckles to her lips. Maxwell pulled out a chair, sitting across from her, the table a small barrier between their worlds. He'd seen Rachel before, her quiet efficiency at the register, her smile for every customer, even the ones who sneered. Yesterday, he'd watched her slip $1 from her pocket to cover a kid's candy bar, her face soft with understanding. But he'd also seen the glares, heard the whispers, customers muttering she was irresponsible, a manager snapping about her personal issues. It wasn't just unfair, it was personal. "You don't deserve this," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're the kind of person who keeps this place human." Rachel looked at him, searching his face as if trying to place why this stranger's words felt so heavy. "You don't even know me," she said, but there was no bite in it, only exhaustion. "I do," Maxwell said, then caught himself. "I mean, I've seen you. You're always helping, always giving. Why stay if they treat you like this? Rachel's gaze drifted to a photo she'd pulled from her purse, a faded snapshot of her, Zara, and their mother, Elaine Carter, laughing in a park. Zara, she said simply, she needs me to be strong. I can't let her see me break. Not Westbrook didn't break. The words hung there, slicing through the hum of the fluorescent light. Maxwell leaned forward, his elbows on the table, drawn in by her quiet strength. He knew that kind of pain, the kind that carved out your insides but left you standing. My mom was like you, he said, the confession slipping out before he could stop it. She worked herself to the bone, took the hits, never complained. It wasn't fair then either. Rachel's eyes met his, a flicker of connection sparking in their depths. What happened to her? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, his cover teetering. She's gone, he said, the truth raw but guarded. But she taught me to notice people like you. You're not invisible, Rachel. Her lips parted, a tear escaping down her cheek. I feel like I am, she murmured. Like I'm screaming, and no one hears. Maxwell's hand twitched, wanting to reach for hers, but he held back. He wasn't just Maxwell J., the warehouse guy. He was Jonathan Reed, the man who'd built Reed Mart to keep his mother's spirit alive. And now Rachel's pain was a mirror to his own, a call to fix what he'd let slip. I hear you, he said, his voice thick with promise, and I'm not the only one who will. Rachel's brow furrowed, confused, but Maxwell stood, his heart pounding with purpose. He'd watch her closer, dig deeper, make this right. As he left the break room, her photo burned in his mind. 3 smiles, one now lost forever. He'd make sure Rachel and Zara weren't lost either. What's your guess for their story? Where are you reading from, and what time is it? Hit that subscribe button to unravel the secrets waiting in the chapters ahead. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. Maxwell pushed through the swinging doors into the warehouse, the cool air hitting him like a wave, but it did nothing to ease the storm brewing inside. Rachel's words echoed in his mind, her quiet confession, the photo of Zara's innocent smile, the raw edge of her grief. He grabbed a stack of boxes, heaving them onto a cart with more force than necessary, his muscles straining under the weight. This disguise, this charade as Maxwell J. was supposed to be temporary, a way to root out the problems plaguing Reed Mart. But now it felt like a lifeline, pulling him deeper into a world he'd long forgotten. As he wheeled the cart toward the shelves, memories flooded back unbidden. Jonathan Reed, that was his real name, the one he'd buried under layers of corporate success. He'd started Reed Mart in a dingy garage, scraping together loans and dreams to honor his mother, Elaine Reed. She'd been a cashier at a rundown supermarket, her pale hands calloused from endless scans, her smile fading under the grind of poverty. Elaine had raised him alone after his father vanished, facing whispers and judgments for being a single mom in a small town that prized perfect families. We're enough, she'd say, her voice steady even as tears brimmed. But the world disagreed, piling on with low wages, denied promotions, and sidelong glances that screamed unreliable. Cancer took her too soon, leaving Jonathan with a fire to build something better, a chain where people like her could thrive. Reed Mart exploded from there. First one store, then 10, then hundreds. He changed his name to Maxwell, shedding the past like old skin, focusing on expansions, profits, and board meetings. But growth had a price. The anonymous letter that landed on his desk 3 weeks ago proved it. Scrawled accusations of unfair firings, biases against single parents, a culture that rewarded the polished over the persevering. You've forgotten why you started, it read. It hit like a gut punch, echoing Elaine's warnings in her final days. So here he was, undercover at Store 48, the epicenter of complaints, posing as a transfer from another branch. No one knew the CEO was stacking shelves, listening, watching. His first shift had been eye-opening. The warehouse hummed with activity, forklifts beeping, workers bantering over clipboards. Maxwell blended in, his tailored suit swapped for jeans and a flannel shirt that scratched his skin. It felt real, grounding, a far cry from his penthouse office. But it was Rachel who caught his eye from the start. Through the stockroom window, he'd seen her at Register 3, her movements efficient yet graceful. A harried mother with a screaming toddler. Rachel knelt, offering a sticker from her pocket, turning chaos to calm. An elderly man short on change. She covered it discreetly, waving off his thanks. Her kindness wasn't performative. It was instinct, the kind Elaine had wielded like a shield. But the shadows lurked. Maxwell overheard the manager, a stern woman named Carla, muttering about Rachel's distractions. "Single moms always have excuses," she'd said to a coworker, her voice dripping disdain. It mirrored the biases Elaine had endured. Promotions passed over because she might need time off for the kid. Maxwell's blood boiled, but he stayed silent, noting it all. During his lunch break, he'd trailed Rachel subtly, seeing her juggle a quick call to Zara's school while mopping a spill no one else touched. She moved with a quiet determination, her hazel eyes holding a depth that spoke of battles fought alone. Now, after her breakdown in the break room, that determination felt fragile. Maxwell paused by a pallet of canned goods, his hands idle as he replayed her story. Fired for being a single mom? It was the very injustice he'd vowed to eradicate. Elaine would be furious, her legacy twisted into this. He slammed a box down, drawing a glance from a fellow worker. "Easy there, new guy," the man chuckled. "First week's always rough." Maxwell forced a nod, but his mind raced. He needed more observations, proof, to overhaul the policies from the top. But Rachel, she wasn't just data. She was a reminder, a living echo of his mother. As the afternoon dragged on, Maxwell found excuses to pass the front end. Rachel had composed herself, back at her register for what might be her last shift. A rude customer, a burly man in a suit, snapped at her over a pricing error, his voice booming. "You people are always messing up, probably too busy with your kid to focus." Rachel's face flushed, but she apologized calmly, refunding him without argument. Maxwell clenched his fist from afar, the scene too familiar. Why did she endure it? For Zara, yes, but there was more. A resilience that mirrored Elaine's, refusing to let the world win. By closing time, as lights dimmed and employees filed out, Maxwell lingered in the parking lot. Rachel emerged, her bag slung over her shoulder, pausing to text someone. Zara's babysitter, perhaps. She looked smaller under the sodium lamps, vulnerable yet unbreakable. He almost approached her, but held back. His promise to Elaine burned brighter now, to protect the overlooked, to make Reed Mart a haven. Rachel had ignited that flame anew. Tomorrow he'd dig deeper, shadow her routines, uncover the cracks. But tonight, in the quiet of his undercover apartment, he'd plan anonymous ways to help, steps to reform. The connection he felt wasn't just sympathy, it was fate, pulling him toward redemption. As he drove away, the city's lights blurring, Maxwell whispered to the empty car, "I won't let you down, Mom. Or her." The road ahead twisted, but for the first time in years, he felt alive. What twists await in their paths? Drop your predictions below. Tell me where you're tuning in from and the time on your clock, and don't forget to subscribe. The revelations are just beginning, and you won't want to blink. The next morning dawned gray and relentless, much like the ache in Maxwell's chest as he pulled into the Reed Mart parking lot. Sleep had evaded him, Rachel's face haunting the shadows of his cramped undercover apartment, her hazel eyes brimming with unspoken battles, mirroring the quiet fire he'd seen in Elaine's. He adjusted his name tag, Maxwell J., and slipped into the warehouse routine. But his focus sharpened on the front end. Rachel was there, her shift extended by some managerial whim, perhaps her last before the firing took hold. From the stockroom's vantage point, he watched her like a guardian in the wings, invisible yet attuned to every nuance. She moved with a grace born of necessity, her hands swift over the scanner, bagging groceries with mechanical precision. A young couple approached, their card overflowing, and when their card declined by a few dollars, Rachel didn't hesitate. "I've got it," she murmured, slipping bills from her pocket, her smile soft as she waved off their protests. "Happens to all of us." The woman thanked her profusely, but Maxwell saw the toll. The way Rachel's shoulders sagged just a fraction, her kindness a shield against the world's indifference. It was Elaine all over again, paying forward what little she had, enduring judgments for her single status without a word of complaint. As the morning rush peaked, Maxwell edged closer, restocking shelves near the registers to observe without drawing eyes. Rachel's pain was evident in the subtle lines around her mouth, the way she paused mid-transaction to rub her temples, exhaustion etching deeper grooves. Yet she pressed on, helping an elderly gentleman load his bags, her voice light despite the strain. "Take care out there," she said, her tone warm, genuine. No one else noticed the flicker in her eyes, the grief for her mother, the worry for Zara, but Maxwell did. It gnawed at him, this silent strength, so like his mother's refusal to break under poverty's weight. A conflict brewed mid-shift, pulling Maxwell from his thoughts. A sharp-dressed woman in heels stormed to Rachel's lane, slamming items on the conveyor. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice cutting through the store's hum. "You're taking forever, probably daydreaming about your kid or whatever." Rachel's cheeks flushed, but she kept scanning, her apology steady. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It'll just be a moment." The customer leaned in, eyes narrowing. "People like you, single moms, aren't reliable. Who knows if you'll even show up tomorrow? I don't trust you with my change." The words hung poisonously, echoing the biases Maxwell had sworn to dismantle. Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she handed back the receipt, but she met the woman's gaze. "Have a good day," she said evenly, her voice a quiet defiance. Maxwell's fists clenched behind a display of cereals, rage simmering. Why didn't she snap back? Why endure such venom? He knew the answer deep down. It was the same reason Elaine had bitten her tongue through endless shifts. Survival. For Zara, for the roof over their heads, for the fragile normalcy in a world that stacked the deck against them. Rachel wiped down her station after the woman left, her movements deliberate, as if scrubbing away the insult. Maxwell wanted to intervene, to reveal himself and fire the customer on the spot, but his cover held him back. Instead, he noted it all, the manager's indifferent glance, the co-workers' averted eyes, fuel for the changes brewing in his mind. By lunchtime, Maxwell found a quiet corner in the warehouse, munching a sandwich while replaying the scenes. Rachel embodied everything Reed Mart should stand for: compassion amid chaos, resilience in the face of scorn. He recalled Elaine's stories of similar humiliations, customers doubting her because she was just a single mom scraping by. It had fueled his empire, yet here it persisted, unchecked. Rachel's similarity to her deepened the pull. Her quiet acts of kindness weren't for show, but survival, much like Elaine covering a co-worker's shift despite her fatigue. The afternoon brought more glimpses. Rachel helped a frazzled father with a spilled drink, kneeling to mop it up without a sigh, her apron soaking through. "No worries," she assured him, her smile reaching her eyes for a brief moment. Maxwell wondered how she maintained it, the facade of strength while carrying the weight of loss and prejudice. Her mother's death, so recent, must have shattered her. Yet she soldiered on for Zara. He felt a connection forging, not just sympathy, but something profound, as if fate had placed her in his path to redeem his lapses. As the day waned, Maxwell lingered near the exit, watching Rachel clock out. She paused at her locker, pulling out the photo from yesterday, her thumb tracing the edges. A soft sigh escaped her, and for a second her mask slipped. Raw vulnerability in the tilt of her head. Maxwell's heart twisted. Why did she stay? The pay was meager, the treatment unfair, yet she clung to it like a lifeline. Perhaps it was the routine, the illusion of stability in a storm. Or maybe, like Elaine, she believed in the good beneath the flaws. That thought solidified his resolve. He'd shadow her more, uncover the systemic rot, and act, subtly at first, then boldly. Driving home under a setting sun, Maxwell's mind raced with plans. Rachel wasn't just an employee. She was a catalyst, awakening the promises he'd made to his mother's memory. The connection hummed stronger now, a silent bond urging him forward. Tomorrow he'd delve deeper, perhaps engage her again, peel back the layers. But for now the question lingered. How much more could she endure before breaking? What hidden truths will surface next? Share your thoughts, where you're following from, and the hour on your watch. Subscribe now, because the heart of this tale is about to unfold in ways you can't predict. The warehouse lights flickered as Maxwell clocked out late that evening, his body aching from the day's labor, but his mind refused to quiet. Rachel's image lingered, her defiant smile amid the insults, the way she'd traced that photo with such tenderness. He needed to connect again, to peel back the layers of her pain without shattering his disguise. The next day blurred into routine, stacking crates, dodging forklifts, all while stealing glances at the registers. Rachel was there, her movements slower, shadows under her eyes speaking of sleepless nights. By mid-afternoon, fate, or perhaps his subtle maneuvering, aligned them in the break room once more. She was alone, slumped at the table with a lukewarm coffee, staring blankly at the wall. Maxwell entered quietly, pretending to grab a snack from the vending machine. "Rough shift?" he asked, his voice casual but laced with concern. Rachel looked up, recognition softening her features. "You again," she said with a faint smile. "Maxwell J, right?" "Yeah, it's, one of those days." He sat across from her, uninvited but unresisted, the air thick with unspoken words. "Want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps." Rachel hesitated, her fingers twisting the coffee cup. Then, as if a weight lifted, she exhaled. "I messed up a transaction yesterday, overcharged by $1 because I was so tired. Zara had a fever all night, and I barely slept." Her voice dropped. "Manager denied my request for time off, said single moms can't expect special treatment, as if asking for a day to care for my sick kid is special." Maxwell's jaw tightened, anger flaring at the policy he'd unknowingly let fester. "That's not fair," he murmured. "You shouldn't have to choose between your job and your family." She nodded, pulling the photo from her purse again, holding it like a talisman. "Zara's only 6. She's everything to me. I tell her mom's on a long trip, to protect her from the truth, that our mother's gone forever." Her eyes welled up, voice cracking. "Car accident last year. Hit and run. I was supposed to pick her up that day, but work kept me late. If I'd been there..." The confession hung heavy, guilt etching her face. Maxwell leaned in, his heart pounding. "It wasn't your fault," he said softly, echoing words he'd wished someone had told him about Elaine. Rachel traced Zara's face in the photo, a small girl with curls and a gap-toothed grin. "She's so full of life, asks about mom every night, draws pictures of us together. I fear if I lose this job, I'll lose her smile too. Being a single mom means everything's on me, bills, school, the grief we share. No one else to lean on." She laughed bitterly. "And now fired because they think I'm unreliable. As if raising her alone doesn't prove the opposite." Maxwell's fists clenched under the table, fury at his company's blind spots boiling over. Elaine had faced the same, denied leave for his school events, labeled distracted for prioritizing family. "You're stronger than they know," he said, his voice thick. "I've seen you, covering for customers, mopping spills, keeping it together when others would crumble." Rachel met his gaze, vulnerability raw. "It's all an act sometimes. Inside, I'm terrified. Zara needs stability, and without this paycheck..." She trailed off, a tear slipping free. Maxwell reached across impulsively, his hand covering hers for a brief, electric moment. "You're not alone," he whispered, the words a vow. "I'll help however I can. Quietly, but I promise." She pulled back slightly, surprised but not offended. "Why? You barely know me." Maxwell swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Because I've been there. My mom raised me alone, fought the same battles. She deserved better. And so do you." The connection deepened in that instant, her eyes searching his as if sensing the layers beneath. Rachel nodded slowly, wiping her face. "Thank you. It's nice to be seen." They sat in companionable silence, the break room's hum fading into the background. As minutes ticked by, Rachel shared more fragments. Zara's love for drawing family adventures, the way she'd mimicked their mother's lullabies to soothe nightmares. "I sing them now," she said, "but my voice isn't the same." Maxwell listened, each detail carving her deeper into his resolve. He imagined Elaine watching, nodding approval. But anger simmered too, at the policies allowing such dismissals, the culture breeding prejudice against single parents like her, like his mother. When the buzzer signaled the end of break, Rachel stood, pocketing the photo. I should go. Thanks for listening, Maxwell. He rose too, his mind already plotting. Anonymous support, policy reviews once his cover lifted. Anytime, he replied, meaning it. As she left, her step a touch lighter, Maxwell lingered, heart heavy with her secrets. He'd vowed them laying support. But how? A donation through his foundation? A word to the right ears? The gone nong she carried alone fueled his fire to change it all. That night in his apartment, Maxwell paced, Rachel's words replaying. Her fear of losing Zara's smile mirrored his regrets over Elaine's faded joy. He wouldn't let history repeat itself. Tomorrow he'd probe the past connections she hinted at, her mother's accident, the hero who'd intervened. But for now his promise burned, to lift her burden, silently until he could roar. What buried links will tie their fates? Predict below, share your spot on the map in the time ticking away. Subscribe tight, for the emotions are deepening, and the twists, they're closer than you think. Days blurred into a rhythm of covert observation and stolen conversations, each one drawing Maxwell deeper into Rachel's orbit. Her confessions in the break room had become a fragile bridge, one he crossed carefully, sharing fragments of his past to coax out hers. By week's end, as rain pattered against the store's windows, they found themselves alone again during a slow afternoon lull. Rachel nursed a tea, her eyes distant, while Maxwell feigned interest in a newspaper, his pulse quickening at the opportunity. You mentioned your mom's accident, he ventured gently, folding the paper. If it's too hard, I get it, but sometimes sharing lightens the load. Rachel's gaze shifted to him, weighing trust. She set down her cup, fingers tracing the rim. It's been 10 years, but it feels like yesterday, she said softly. Mom, Elaine Carter, was driving home from her second job. Single mom grind, you know? Pouring rain, slick roads. A drunk driver swerved into her lane near the old bridge. She spun out, car flipping toward the river. Her voice wavered, the memory vivid. They said she wouldn't have made it if not for this guy, Jonathan Reed. He was behind her, saw it all, pulled over, jumped into the chaos, stabilized her until help came. Even testified against the driver, fought for justice because he hated how single parents like her got overlooked in the system. Maxwell's breath caught, the name, his old name, hitting like a thunderclap. Jonathan Reed, the young idealist who'd witnessed the crash on his way home from college, driven by the fresh wound of losing Elaine Reed to similar systemic neglect. He'd acted on instinct, hauling the woman from the wreckage, applying pressure to her wounds with his jacket, his hands steady despite the panic. The papers had called him a hero, a white knight against everyday injustices. But he'd shrugged it off, changing his name soon after to build Reed Mart in anonymity. Now hearing it from Rachel, the pieces slotted into place with dizzying clarity. She talked about him sometimes, Rachel continued, unaware of the storm raging in him. Said he reminded her of what good people could do, standing up for folks like us, single moms battling the odds. She reached into her bag, pulling out a worn envelope, yellowed with age. I found this after she passed, a thank you letter she never sent. Guess life got in the way. Rachel handed it over, the address scrawled in neat cursive. Jonathan Reed, care of the local news station that had covered the story. Maxwell's fingers trembled as he took it, his eyes scanning the words. Gratitude for saving her life, for giving her more time with her daughters, Rachel and little Zara, not yet born. The coincidence? No. The connection slammed into him. He'd saved Elaine Carter, unknowingly preserving a family that now mirrored his losses. Memories surged, the crash site, sirens wailing, the woman's faint thanks as paramedics arrived. And there, in the back seat, a teenage girl huddled in shock. Rachel, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. He'd comforted her briefly, a hand on her shoulder, murmuring assurances before fading into the background. Now that girl sat before him, grown into a woman carrying the same burdens. her strength an echo of her mother's. Maxwell fought to keep his composure, pocketing the letter with a nod. "Sounds like a good man," he said, voice steady but thick. Inside, turmoil churned. Reveal himself and risk everything? Or continue the anonymous support? Disclosure could shatter his undercover mission, expose the CEO meddling in store affairs. Yet hiding felt like betrayal, especially as he recalled her younger self, so vulnerable that night. "He probably just did what anyone would," he added, deflecting. Rachel smiled faintly. "Maybe, but Mom said he fought the insurance company too. Argued they were biased against single parents, denying claims because we're high risk. He won her a settlement, gave us a fighting chance." The parallel to his crusade for Reed Mart stung. Jonathan Reed had been that fighter, channeling rage over his mother's treatment into action. Now, as Maxwell, he'd let those values erode. Rachel's story ignited them anew, her hazel eyes, so like the girls from that rainy night, pulling at his heart. He imagined her as a child, drawing strength from her rescued mother, only to lose her later and face the same prejudices. Emotion welled up, a deep ache for the paths they'd unknowingly shared. "I wish I could thank him," Rachel sighed, tucking the envelope away, "for giving us those extra years." Maxwell's throat tightened. He was that man, sitting inches away, torn between confession and caution. Revealing now might overwhelm her, especially amid her firing and grief. Better to support from the shadows, channel funds, push reforms, while building trust. But the memory of her small hand clutching his sleeve at the crash site haunted him, a silent plea he couldn't ignore forever. As they parted, Rachel's touch on his arm lingered. "You're easy to talk to, Maxwell. Thanks." He nodded, watching her return to her register, her step resilient. Alone, he clutched the letter in his pocket, the weight of destiny pressing down. The struggle intensified, reveal and risk his plan, or stay hidden and watch her suffer. Either way, the bond deepened, pulling him toward a reckoning. That evening, rain mirroring the past, Maxwell sat in his apartment, the letter open before him. Elaine Carter's words blurred through unshed tears, gratitude for a hero who'd become a ghost. He remembered Rachel's childlike face, now etched with adult sorrows, and vowed to be her guardian again, anonymously for now. But how long could he hide? What revelations will shatter the silence? Spill your theories, pinpoint your location and the time glowing on your screen. Lock in that subscription because the past is colliding with the present and the heartbreak. It's only intensifying. Nights stretched long in Maxwell's undercover life, the apartment's thin walls echoing with distant traffic as he pored over the letter from Elaine Carter, its words a tether to the past. Rachel's unknowing revelation had cracked something open in him, a fierce protectiveness, mingled with guilt for the empire he'd let stray from its roots. He couldn't reveal himself yet. The investigation into Store 48's biases demanded secrecy, but inaction gnawed at him. Rachel's firing loomed, her quiet strength fraying under the strain. He needed to act, subtly, to bridge the gap until he could overhaul the system. The idea sparked during a sleepless dawn. Gifts, anonymous and meaningful, channeled through the Elaine Reed Foundation, a quiet charity he'd founded in his mother's name, aiding single parents with discreet support. It was untraceable to him, perfect for his disguise. By morning, he'd arranged it all from a burner phone, his voice masked, directing packages to Rachel's modest address pulled from employee records. The first, a care package, stocked with essentials, soft blankets, herbal teas, bath salts scented like lavender, Elaine's favorite. Tucked inside, a note in typed font. "For the strength you show every day, you're not alone in this fight." He watched from afar that evening, lingering in the parking lot as Rachel left work, her bag heavier with uncertainty. The delivery would arrive soon, a small spark in her darkness. Days later, during a shared break, he caught the shift in her eyes brighter, a tentative smile as she stirred her coffee. "Something weird happened," she confided, glancing around. "Got this package at home. Stuff for me and Zara. Cozy things, like someone knew I needed a breather. No sender, just a note about strength." Maxwell feigned surprise, his heart racing. Sounds like a guardian angel, he said lightly, masking the thrill of her reaction. Rachel's laugh was soft, touched with wonder. Yeah, maybe. Zara loved the little stuffed bear inside, said it reminded her of Mom's hugs. She paused, emotion flickering. It's been tough, telling her about the job loss without scaring her. It felt like a sign to keep going. Maxwell nodded, absorbing her gratitude, the way it eased the lines on her face. But he wasn't done. The next gift arrived midweek, an antique music box, its melody a lullaby Elaine had hummed to him as a child. Hush, little baby, simple and soothing. He'd sourced it carefully, ensuring anonymity through the foundation. Rachel's reaction came in snippets overheard in the warehouse. Whispers to a coworker about the miracle box that played her mother's favorite tune. It brought everything back, she said, voice hushed. Zara danced to it all night, giggling like old times. Who could know that song meant so much? Maxwell, stacking boxes nearby, felt a pang of joy mixed with ache. The gifts were mending fractures he couldn't touch directly, reminding her of lost warmth amid the cold judgments of single parenthood. Emboldened, he escalated. Through the foundation, he funded toys for Zara, art supplies, a set of building blocks, each wrapped with care, and the centerpiece, a framed drawing, one Zara had sketched years ago, depicting a guardian angel watching over their family. Rachel had mentioned it in passing, a childish scribble lost in a move, but Maxwell's resources unearthed it from old-school records, digitized and preserved. The note accompanying read, "Against the biases that try to dim your light, remember? Families like yours are the strongest. Keep shining." The impact hit like a wave. The following day, Rachel appeared at work transformed, though shadows lingered from her impending exit. In the break room, she sought him out, eyes shimmering. "It's happening again," she whispered, pulling him aside. "More gifts for Zara, and this." She showed a photo on her phone, the framed drawing, Zara beaming beside it. "How? I thought it was gone forever." The note, it talked about fighting family prejudices, like someone gets it. Tears welled, spilling over as memories flooded back. Mom would draw with us, angels guarding against the hard stuff. This brought her voice back, her laugh. "I cried for hours, good tears, like permission to feel it all." Maxwell's throat constricted, watching her vulnerability unfold. "Whoever it is, they see you," he said, voice low. "The real you, the mom battling everything alone, yet giving so much." Rachel nodded, wiping her eyes. "It's a miracle. I told the girls at the registers. Said it's like magic in the madness. Makes me wonder if there's hope after all." Her words rippled through him. Co-workers buzzed with her, Fep Mao, sharing stories of their struggles, the store's undercurrents of discontent surfacing. It crystallized for Maxwell. Reed Mart needed change. Root-deep reforms to support single parents. Combat the stigmas eroding morale. Rachel's story wasn't isolated. It was systemic, a betrayal of Elaine's legacy. As he observed her sharing the tale, laughter mingling with tears among the staff, he recognized the spark. These gifts weren't just aid. They were catalysts, highlighting the humanity his company had overlooked. That night, alone with his thoughts, Maxwell reviewed foundation logs, the anonymous trail leading back to him. Rachel's emotion haunted him, her sobs of release, the way she'd questioned the keeper of the drawing, unaware it was the man who'd saved her mother, now safeguarding her future. The connection pulsed stronger, urging revelation, but timing held him back. For now, these shadows of support would suffice, building toward the light. Yet doubt crept in. How long before she pieced it together? Or before his heart demanded more than anonymity? The gifts had mended her momentarily, but the true fix lay in the transformation of the company, of himself. What shadows will lift in the unveiling? Forecast the finale, mark your map spot, and the ticking time. Seal that subscription, for the climax beckons. In the tears, they're turning to triumph. Weeks melted into a tense anticipation, the anonymous gifts weaving a fragile web of hope around Rachel, while Maxwell's undercover days neared their end. The foundation's packages had become a lifeline, each one a silent affirmation amid her firing shadow. But the store's undercurrents demanded action. Reports compiled in secret, biased policies, overlooked single parents, a culture straying from Elaine Reed's vision. Maxwell knew the time had come. Revelation loomed, not just for Rachel, but for the entire chain. He scheduled an all-staff meeting at Store 48, posing it as a routine corporate check-in, his true identity still veiled. The morning arrived crisp, sunlight filtering through the store's windows as employees gathered in the back warehouse, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Rachel stood at the edge, arms crossed, her hazel eyes wary. Her last day she'd confided to him earlier, voice laced with resignation. Maxwell, in his warehouse garb, took the makeshift stage, a podium of stacked crates, his heart thundering. "Thank you all for coming," he began, voice steady but charged. Eyes locked on Rachel, he drew a breath. "I've been here undercover, observing, learning. But I'm not Maxwell J. I'm Maxwell Reed, CEO of Reed Mart." Gasps echoed, whispers exploding like fireworks. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth, eyes widening in disbelief. Maxwell pressed on, his gaze never leaving hers. "I built this company to honor my mother, Elaine Reed, a single mom who faced prejudice and hardship, yet gave everything. But we've lost our way. Biases against single parents, unfair firings. It's not what she stood for." He paused, emotion thickening his words. "Rachel, you've shown me that. Your strength, your kindness, despite the judgments, covering for customers, enduring insults, raising Zara alone while grieving. It reignited the values I forgot. You reminded me of her, of why we exist." The room fell silent, all eyes on Rachel as color drained from her face. "Me?" she whispered, stepping forward involuntarily. Maxwell nodded, descending the crates to stand before her. "Yes, and there's more." He pulled the letter from his pocket, the one from Elaine Carter, holding it out. "10 years ago, I was Jonathan Reed. I saved your mother from that crash. I was the one who fought for her, who saw the injustice single moms like her faced. I didn't know then that I'd meet you again, that you'd become the mirror to my losses." Rachel's knees buckled slightly, tears streaming as she took the letter, recognition dawning. You're him? The hero Mom talked about?" Her voice broke, the pieces connecting. The crash, the stranger's comfort, now this man who'd listened in the break room, sent the gifts. The packages, the music box, Zara's drawing. "It was you?" Maxwell confirmed with a nod, his eyes misting. "Anonymously, through my foundation. I couldn't stand by while you suffered the same prejudices my mother did. But it's not enough. Today I'm announcing changes. Paid leave for family needs, anti-bias training, support programs for single parents and those in hardship. No more firings like yours. Rachel, your job is reinstated, with back pay and a promotion if you want it." Applause erupted, tentative at first, then thunderous, co-workers patting Rachel's back as she stood stunned. But her focus remained on Maxwell, emotions swirling, gratitude, shock, a budding warmth. "Why me?" she asked, voice trembling. He stepped closer, the crowd fading. "Because I see you, your resilience, your heart. It's what my mother had, what I've been searching for. And I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung vulnerable, raw in the warehouse air. Rachel's breath hitched. Then she closed the distance, wrapping her arms around him in a fierce embrace. "Thank you," she murmured into his shoulder, her body shaking with sobs of release. "For everything." The meeting dissolved into cheers, but for Maxwell and Rachel, it was a beginning. Days later, the changes rolled out company-wide, emails buzzing with the new policies, inspired by her story. Reed Mart transformed, whispers of reform spreading like wildfire. But personally, the shift was profound. Maxwell shed his disguise fully, inviting Rachel and Zara to his world. Their first outing, a stroll through the city park, leaves crunching underfoot, Zara skipping between them, her small hand in his. "Look, Rachel! Swings!" Zara squealed, tugging them forward. Maxwell laughed, hoisting her up, the sound foreign yet freeing after years of boardroom isolation. Rachel watched, her smile genuine, the weight of months lifting. Later they visited Elaine Reed's grave, a quiet cemetery bathed in afternoon light. Maxwell knelt, placing flowers, whispering apologies for straying from her path. Rachel joined him, her hand on his back. "She'd be proud," she said softly. Zara, sensing the solemnity, hugged his leg. "Are you our new angel?" she asked innocently, echoing the drawing he'd framed. Maxwell's eyes welled, kneeling to her level. "If you'll have me, yes." Zara beamed, throwing her arms around his neck. "Angel Max." The moment sealed it, a new family forming from shared scars, love blooming in the ashes of loss. Rachel leaned in, their foreheads touching. "You've given us hope," she whispered. "And me, a second chance at love." As the sun set, they walked hand in hand, the city alive around them. Maxwell reflected on the journey. From anonymous observer to revealed redeemer, from grief to grace. Compassion had bridged the gaps, dismantling injustices one heart at a time. Reed Mart wasn't just a business anymore, it was a beacon thanks to Rachel. In the end, it's the hidden kindnesses that change worlds, fighting biases, embracing the overlooked. Let this story stir your acts of empathy. What moved you most in their journey? Share your takeaways, where you're reflecting from, and the time on your side. Subscribe now for more tales of heart and hope that remind us. Change starts with seeing each other. And there you have it. The tale of Maxwell and Rachel, a story born from tears in a break room and blossoming into a beacon of change. From the shadows of undercover observation to the light of revelation, Maxwell rediscovered his roots through Rachel's unyielding strength. Her battles as a single mom, echoing his mother's hardships, sparked reforms that rippled through Reed Mart, proving that one person's pain can ignite widespread compassion. Anonymous gifts turned to open hearts, past connections forged a future family, and injustices crumbled under the weight of empathy. Zara's innocent call of Angel Max sealed it. Love and justice aren't distant dreams. They're choices we make daily. What about you? Did Maxwell's journey resonate with your own experiences of overlooked struggles or hidden kindnesses? Maybe you faced biases at work or witnessed a quiet hero in your life. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What moved you most? Was it the secret gifts, the crash site twist, or the triumphant reforms? Drop where you're tuning in from, the time on your clock, and your predictions for stories like this in the real world. Your insights fuel these narratives, reminding us we're all connected in the fight against unfairness. A huge thank you for joining me on this emotional ride. Your time and engagement mean the world. Stories like these thrive because of listeners like you. If it touched your heart, hit that subscribe button, like, and share to spread the inspiration. Until next time, keep embracing compassion in your corner of the world. See you soon for more tales of hope and humanity. Take care.